I don't know if you know this or not, but it is officially Dynasty time in fantasy football. I understand the playoffs are still going. The Super Bowl hasn't happened yet, but Dynasty never sleeps. So today we have 7 players who are skyrocketing up our Dynasty rankings. And for this video, we're going to focus on guys who have been moving up already due to their play over the last month or two, maybe even a couple of months. We're not going to be projecting as much of guys we think are going to be flying up the boards. We're going to talk about guys like George Pickens, who was our first player who really made a move up the board. And George Pickens, not even 25 years old, came out with, I guess, a season tie that I know I didn't really think he had in him, but I don't know if you're on the same page. 137 targets, 93 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 9 touchdowns. It seemed like it couldn't happen, and he just proved it. Why are we believing a little bit more in George Pickens, and how far do you think he can go?
Honestly, it comes down to the fact that George Pickens was in a much more passing friendly offense, right? He had dealt with the Pittsburgh offense for the beginning of his career, and then he gets moved to Dallas, where the question that you had going into the year was like, well, right, if Dallas can be so great, right, that's the expectation for their offense. Like, how does George Pickens fit into that? Because you do have Jake Ferguson there, who the team really, really likes, CeeDee Lamb, obviously. So again, where does this all, how does this all work together? And it worked out pretty decently for George Pickens. And for those of us that were kind of in on the talent of George Pickens ever since he kind of came out of college, we had just been kind of waiting for this kind of opportunity to happen. So, and I will admit, I think it was a little bit better than expected, because these numbers are kind of fancy wide receiver 1 numbers. And now all of a sudden he is shooting up our dynasty rankings. He's going to be much higher in drafts come redraft time next year. And the question that you had asked about, can this get any better? Can this keep going? I really do think this can keep going. Now, obviously the big, talking point is, well, he's out of a contract. Does Dallas bring him back? Do we get to go through a Jerry Jones kind of contract dispute again? Because that's what Jerry Jones loves to do, is to always be in disputes with his players over contracts. So I think we're all assuming he's back in Dallas one way or another. He's back in Dallas next year, and knowing what this Dallas offense is capable of with how productive they were and how high scoring they were, you can only expect it to, be more of the same. And if you want it to be more, I don't know if we can necessarily get better than a wide receiver 5 season in, season out finish, but the ceiling is just unmatched for George Pickens. We had so many games with 20 plus fantasy points. I mean, that ceiling can't be beat. So I'm expecting more of the same. If he does return to Dallas, completely different story if he goes elsewhere. But again, that situation cannot be more friendly to a guy like George Pickens.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing coming in with a lot of players who are like George Pickens, these big play guys down the field, George Pickens hasn't had a season where he's averaged under 15 yards per reception yet. He does, that's what he does, is big plays. And every time we're like, man, if he could just get the volume. We hadn't seen a season with over 65 receptions. We hadn't seen a season with over 110 targets. Well, this year he got the volume. And a lot of the times when we see guys start to get the volume early in the season, it doesn't completely translate. Well, it translated 1 for 1 for George Pickens. He just took the volume and, just completely dominated. So that gives me more confidence too if he does move teams, right? If he's not a Cowboy next year, teams are going to have to pay him. They're going to have to look at him like a true wide receiver 1, because that's what he just produced to like. So top 10, in wide receivers rankings according to Keep Trade Cut. I don't know if I can blame him. After this season, at only 25 years old, potentially back on the Cowboys with Dak Prescott.
I mean, that wide receiver 10 ranking right there is kind of the community, right? Because Keep Trade Cut is the community sourced kind of dynasty rankings and information, all that kind of stuff. That tells me that people are expecting it to, regress just a little bit, that we're not expecting again another top 5 season, but there's still expectations that he can be a top 12 guy. So again, for what feels like the 3rd, 4th time, it's a whole new conversation if he goes elsewhere. But I think you brought up a good point. We saw enough with Pickens this year that even if he does go somewhere else, you've got confidence that he can produce yet again because he is that talented to warrant that much volume, and he isn't so reliant on big plays.
Now, speaking of a guy who we've been waiting for the talent to show through, we finally got it with Chris Olave in probably the most unlikely year for it to happen, right? We're looking at the beginning of this year, we're going, it's Spencer Rattler, it's Tyler Shuck. We want nothing to do with it. And over the back half of the season, Ty, this dude was unreal. From week 10 on, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 18, wide receiver 18. He did have wide receiver 53, then wide receiver 9, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 2. Just dominant over the back half of the year, 1,100 yards on 100 receptions. Again, we had seen, 2023, he had 138 targets, he had 87 receptions, but his game is different than that of George Pickens. He's a guy who you need insane volume. We got it, especially over the back half of the year. And the good news for Chris Olave, again, 25, probably is going to be 26 at the start of next season. But they're bringing back the head coach, the play caller, the quarterback. Everything's coming back again next year for the Saints. So he's going to get some continuity moving forward. Are you expecting a lot of the same next season? Regression? What are your thoughts moving forward for Chris Olave? And do you like this wide receiver 15 ranking according to Keep Trade Cut?
I do like the wide receiver 15 ranking. And to the question that you had asked at the beginning of just like, are we going to regress a little bit? I think it's only natural to think that we're going to regress after a 156 target season. But I was thinking about this earlier. The Chris Olave value right now is not so much of, yeah, we're pushing him to the ceiling or like where we think he can go. It really feels like it's it's a correction because again, it was so low. Knowing what he was going into this year, we knew he was going to get volume because he was the only player. Yes, he got Rashid Shaheed for at least half the year. Alvin Kamara wasn't utilized the same with Kellen Moore as he was in previous years. So you knew volume was going to be there. The biggest thing was quarterback play, and we got decent enough quarterback play, which gave him those 9 touchdowns. And that's ultimately what catapulted him up in those end of the year rankings. So can it get better? I have a tough time saying that it can get better because if we're getting better, we're asking for double-digit touchdowns. We're probably asking for 1,300 yards. And I don't know. Yes, for as good as Tyler Shuck have played, I don't know if he can support that kind of production or like he can help a receiver with that kind of production. But I will say, I feel like this is going to be a pretty consistent thing. He's going to sit somewhere between 140, 160 targets. He's going to put somewhere between 6 to 8 touchdowns a year. And the yards, I mean, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200. Like I said, that wide receiver 15 value feels correct now. It feels like, yes, we knew what the situation was going into the year, but now we saw, you know what, maybe it's not so bad after all. And so now it's just corrected itself to that wide receiver 15 spot.
He kind of feels like to me another Keenan Allen, that type of player, right? I mean, because Keenan Allen, you just listed off the 140, 160 targets. Keenan Allen did that for 7 years in a row, pretty much. You said 1,000, 1,200 yards, 7 years in a row. He had 1 year with over 1,200 yards, 5 to 8 touchdowns. That was his entire, that's where he sat. That's what Chris Olave feels like to me. And that's going to be for me probably regardless, especially as long as Kellen Moore is there. As long as Kellen Moore is the head coach, that feels like what is going to continue to happen for Chris Olave. And he's, again, another guy that we've now seen him prove it. So it does feel a lot more likely that it's going to continue rather than continually saying, oh, but if he just got more volume, we'd finally see it. If he just got more, we'd finally see it. So that's what excites me about Chris Olave the most. I love looking at kind of the players right around him, though. And I thought I had it pulled up, Ty. Here we go. The wide receivers right around him for Chris Olave. Right in front of him, Emeka Egbuka, Garrett Wilson. Right behind him, Roba Dunze, Lad McConkey. It kind of feels like that's the perfect spot. It's these young guys that we've seen kind of the spike from. we saw the spike from Ladd, but Rome Odunze, Ladd, again, younger guys who are a little more, is this going to pan out the way we think it is? Because if it does, it's going to hit big. And then you have Chris Olave right in the middle of, is he ever going to be a top 5 guy? Probably not. But is he going to finish outside the top 24 moving forward? Outside of injury, probably not.
Probably not. And honestly, like Chris Olave, as a Chris Olave dynasty manager in multiple leagues, I'm very, very happy. Now, we can get into the discussion, maybe not on this, maybe down the road. Do you sell high on Chris Olave? Because again, if you don't think it's going to get much better than what we got this year,
yeah,
maybe you do. But then, like you said, you look at receivers around him, other players, like again on Keep Trade Cut, you got Quinshon Judkins, CMC, Jaden Daniels, Breece Hall. Like the options are pretty limited, so it feels like you're tearing down and getting a something plus that. It again, that's some very surface level trade talk there for Chris Olave, but you know exactly what you're getting with Chris Olave, right? And the big question that you were needing an answer for was like, is he going to get actually like semi-decent quarterback play? And he got semi-decent quarterback play, and this is what the result was.
He does feel like a good tier up, tier down kind of a player. If you have, you only got one stud, you need some picks, but you still want a solid piece. Chris Olave is the guy. If you want to go get the stud, Chris Olave is a solid piece because, like you said, you know what he is. Speaking of, you know what it is with us. Every single week we have 2 episodes. Obviously, I say that, and then this is the 1 week that we're not dropping on our normal day. This video drops on Thursday. Usually we post Tuesdays and Thursdays. We are moving our scheduling around, so this is going to be a weird week. But moving forward for the rest of the offseason, videos will come out on Wednesdays and Fridays. So those are the 2 days moving forward. You can look forward to them there. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications, especially if you love Dynasty content, because we're not going to stop. We're going to keep pumping out. It's my favorite content to talk about. I'm going to be honest. So excited to be here. Ty, this next guy, he is all the rage right now. Talk about a guy who's moved up the most in probably the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's Colston Loveland. The rise that we've seen from, you know what, he could be pretty good in this Ben Johnson scheme. He could be the next Sam Laporta, to now it's like, Sam Laporta, who? This guy's going to be way better. The first question I want to ask you before we really dive into it, if you have to pick right now, there's 2 rookie tight ends who are both studs. Are you leaning Tyler Warren or are you leaning Colston Loveland?
Colston Loveland. And it's not really even close for me. Because I think Colston Loveland's upside is being the target leader in Chicago, is being kind of not this new Trey McBride type, but like I feel like Colston Loveland's upside is looking back at the year and going, holy cow, like he would have been the wide receiver 14 in usage, or he would have been the wide receiver 8 in targets. Like that's his kind of upside, because you look at the Bears. I think it's pretty safe to say DJ Moore won't be back, especially after he stopped running his route that ultimately ended their season. That feels like a very DeAndre Swift type move that Ben Johnson would want to have happen. You look at Rome Odunze, yeah, it wasn't completely healthy for all the year, but like you saw at the beginning of the year how good it could be, but also feels like they want Luther Burden to be more of a thing, right? So you look at the big 3, Colston Loveland, Rome Odunze, and Luther Burden. Colston Loveland has a wide open opportunity to lead this team in targets versus Tyler Warren, right? Like you said, with the 2 rookie tight ends. Tyler Warren's going to be a really solid piece as well, but I just don't think he has that kind of opportunity in front of him. We'll see how the offseason plays out for the Colts, but you do have the Jonathan Taylor backfield there. Maybe they keep Michael Pittman, they bring back Alec Pierce, something like that. So there's mouths to feed in both offenses, but the Bears have made it clear at this point, yeah, like we're good going to Colston Loveland 12 times a game if we need to. The Colts feel very methodical. They don't feel like they need to pepper a guy with targets. That's why it's pretty easy for me with Colston Loveland. Both really good players, but again, Colston Loveland's upside could be leading the team in targets, and that only means good things then for his fantasy season.
Yeah, Colston Loveland feels like, especially towards the end of the year, a guy who could be Not saying he's going to be, because I think this guy's one of the best tight ends to ever do it, but a similar player to a George Kittle from a fantasy perspective. Where even if he's not seeing 130, 140 targets, if he's getting 115, he's going to be a guy who's consistently seeing 12 to 13 yards per reception, get those touchdown spike seasons, and all of a sudden, like you said, you have those big play opportunities. We got to remember too, he's 21 years old right now. He's going to barely be 22 at the start of next season. He's a full 2 years younger than Tyler Warren and Brock Bowers. So extremely young player coming into his own. He feels like Kyle Pitts with a coach who wants to utilize him, is essentially where we're at. So he's going to actually develop in a way we never got to see Kyle Pitts do. It feels a little late to jump in. I know this isn't a buy or sell, but I do want to ask you. Obviously, he's been skyrocketing up everybody's dynasty rankings. Is it too late to buy in on Colston Loveland, or is it? I'm ready. I'm on the train completely. I'm paying whatever I can to go get him right now.
I mean, it's an interesting discussion because I think you and I would both say like McBride and Brock Bowers. We even had it in our consensus rankings. They are the clear top two, right? Then you look at everyone else and you're like, well, Loveland seems like the next guy up, but can it really get better than what can it get up to tight end 2, tight end 1 in consensus, or kind of the consensus opinion? It could. So when you look at like, is it too late to get in on Colston Loveland? I think it is, because you talk to any Colston Loveland manager and they're like, I need a lot to move off of Colston Loveland at this point, knowing what that upside is. If you're willing to pay up for it, I guess, but I know almost everybody that plays Dynasty advises against paying up or even paying over the top for a guy. And especially when Loveland is already being projected to, tight end 4 on keep trade cut. You don't have much margin to be like, I got some room to negotiate here. You're going to have to pay a premium on it. So maybe you've got the capital, maybe you've got the players to do it. I would just, I don't know if there's going to be a manager out there that's wanting to move off of Colston Loveland at this point.
Moving on to a guy, and I know Lucas would be very happy that he's on here. I know you're happy that he's on here, Ty, but RJ Harvey. There are truthers. Our truthers are celebrating a little bit because it was kind of scary hours over the first part of the year. And then all of a sudden we hit the bye and he went running back 2, running back 4, running back 27, 11, 11, and then running back 53 week 18 against the Chargers when they didn't care quite. Well, no, I guess they did care quite as much, but nonetheless, RJ Harvey is still significantly the cheapest of all, or of those top tier rookie running backs, right? He's right by Cam Skadaboo, who's coming off an injury. Omarion Hampton going at running back 5, Ashton Genty running back 4, Travion Henderson running back 7. You see Harvey here at running back 17. Obviously, age plays into it as well. 25 years old already, going to be 25 and a half. He's a guy who might struggle a little bit more to get a decent second contract, just knowing the age thing. But Ty, my question is, compared to those 3 rookie running backs up top, do you think RJ Harvey over this next year could close the gap between them? Or is the age thing too big? You just don't think the skill's there? You don't trust the Broncos? I know we had the joke going on the last episode when we were talking about running backs of everybody's a Bronco. It kind of feels like
a Denver Bronco.
So why do you think there's this huge discrepancy between those 3 rookies and RJ Harvey?
Yeah, because I honestly think that's what it comes down to, that Denver brings in somebody else, or that RJ Harvey never really gets that like 220 rushing attempts a year in this Denver offense with Sean Payton. Like there's always going to be somebody else to take away work. Let's not forget. Maybe it was trust issues with getting RJ Harvey on the field, and they felt more. They felt like they could trust J.K. Dobbins more. J.K. Dobbins was really outworking everybody in Denver before he got hurt. So I honestly, I understand, and I probably side with the people here as to why RJ Harvey is a little bit lower than you would expect to see, just because, again, there's so many things that can go wrong here. And when I say wrong, I don't mean like RJ Harvey's going to start the year as running back 3 or anything like that, even though Sean Payton likes to play those kind of jokes on us where he releases the unofficial depth chart and it's running back 5 for RJ Harvey. I just don't know if he's exactly lead back. I'm not exactly sure he's the lead guy going into the year. Maybe it's a different conversation next year. So yes, we are 1 year closer to the hypothetical lead back role for RJ Harvey. I'm just not sure it's this year. So good offense. RJ Harvey will continue to find the end zone. He'll get some receiving work. I mean, 47 receptions is nothing to blink at, nothing to bat at. So RJ Harvey will have a role. I'm not sure it's going to be the lead back role. But as soon as we get a report that like, hey, RJ Harvey is a lead guy, he's going to move up our rankings a little bit more.
Yeah, after the bye, week 13 to 18, he was on a 17-game pace of 80-plus targets. So for me, that gives me a little more hope of, hey, even if they bring in somebody else, they went out and got him round 2. He showed he can work in the passing game. This team throws more screens than any other team in the NFL right now. I think he's going to have a decent little role moving forward. The issue is age-wise, currently older than guys like, all the rookies I mentioned. He's older than Jahmyr Gibbs, older than Bijan, older than Devon Achane, older than Quinton Judkins, older than Bucky Irving, older than Breece Hall. So, we're listing out these guys, and these are all guys that you're like, oh, well, they're veterans. I know he doesn't have the same tread on his tires, so age you can adjust a little bit, but still being 25 years old, that's what, to me, keeps him down. I think that he's still got the upside. I think he's a guy who can still produce. It's just there's a lot of question marks moving forward, and just the age thing.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the higher on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show.
We are back, and if you've been looking for some quarterbacks, we have 2 in a row, and I gotta say, I am so happy to finally see Trevor Lawrence up here. I've been beating the drum for Trevor Lawrence in fantasy football for the last 3 seasons. We finally got it. I will say, projected him at quarterback 6 in our draft guide. He finished quarterback 6. Probably the greatest thing to ever happen to me is getting that right. No, I'm just kidding. But it is interesting. We saw 341 attempts. We saw 4,000 yards. The rushing attack, obviously 9 rushing touchdowns this season, 359 yards, both career highs for him. This was something we talked about. We saw with Baker and Liam Cohen. Now we're seeing with Trevor. It's his 3rd 4,000 yard season, first season with over 25 touchdowns. But you look where he's at in Dynasty ranks. Over on Keep Trade Cut, he is currently quarterback 17. And I assume this is going to shift some more as people. CJ Stroud's ahead of him right now. Got to imagine this flips, especially after what we saw this last week. You got guys like Brock Purdy, Dak, Baker Mayfield ahead of him over on Keep Trade Cut. So what's holding people back right now, Ty? And do you think it's justified in keeping Trevor Lawrence this low despite finishing at the quarterback 6, getting all these weapons back, getting Liam Cohen again? I guess where's the discrepancy here between the people and where Trevor finished this year?
I don't understand this one. I'm not gonna lie. And I know that I'm not the biggest Trevor Lawrence guy among the 3 of us here. But you do have to acknowledge 4,000 yards on the year, 29 passing touchdowns, 9 rushing touchdowns. I don't understand what people could be so out on with Trevor Lawrence. Feels like he's just carrying the stigma that he's had the last 4 years of just, he's is not really that great. He's overpaid, or he's a bust of a number 1 overall pick and all that kind of stuff. Liam Cohen truly got Trevor Lawrence to play his best ball of his career. I mean, we had the game against the Jets with 5 passing touchdowns. We had a game against Denver the following week in Denver with 3 passing touchdowns. We had a game the following week against Indy with 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 then to finish it off against Tennessee. Like, towards the end of the year, Liam Cohen got Trevor Lawrence, got the most out of him. So unless we're expecting Jacksonville to take a massive step backward, I don't understand what the pessimism is on Trevor Lawrence. You got the rushing upside here. Maybe it's not 9 rushing touchdowns, but even if he gives you 5 or 6, right, that's still a lot better than majority of the other kind of non-mobile quarterbacks, right? 4,000 yards, I don't know if that's exactly going to be going down a substantial amount. Like, I'm not sure I think people are banking on so much regression here for Jacksonville and for Trevor Lawrence that they're not actually kind of thinking about like, oh, wait a second, what if like Jacksonville actually takes a step next year? Because I mean, I'm just going to say it. We've talked about that wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Travis Hunter. Yes, he's going to be working back from his knee injury and all that kind of stuff, but like, there's room for this to be sustainable. We can have the debate if it can get better. I feel like it's way too early for Jacksonville specifically to have that conversation, but like, I think with what we saw this year, it's pretty sustainable. And if you don't think so, I would love to hear what the case is for not being sustainable.
For sure. I mean, he came in to the year, his top 2 wide receivers were really Travis Hunter and BTJ. And from an overall perspective, I know it's not Travis Hunter's fault. Disappointing as far as utilizing them as weapons in this offense. And this isn't really an anomaly for Trevor Lawrence this season. His last 3 healthy years, 2022, 2023, now 2025, 560, 564, 584 pass attempts, 560 this year. He had 4,007 yards this year. In the 23 and 22, he had 4,016, 4,011, 1,113. So all right in the same range. He did have 29 passing touchdowns this year and 21 and 25 the 2 years prior. 300 plus rushing yards in all 3. 9 rushing touchdowns this year, 4 in 2023, 5 in 2022. So he's had very comparable seasons before this. Now we finally just saw the touchdowns come. And what did Liam Cohen do last year with Baker Mayfield? Scored a lot of touchdowns, right? This is part of the system. This is what they do. This isn't going away. The 9, like you said, 9 rushing touchdowns, sure, might come down a little bit, but we're still talking about a 26-year-old guy who's going to be a top 8 quarterback for the next few years, as long as he's attached to his head coach. So I think that's the biggest thing here of why I don't understand it either. Caleb Williams is at 10 right now, Justin Herbert at 9. That's about right where I see the two. And so, or not where I see the two, right where I see Trevor Lawrence, right in that mix, moving forward behind Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. They have Jaxson Dart up at 8. Spoiler, we're going to talk about him in a sec. But with Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence deserves to be right in that tier.
I would agree. He's not losing any weapons. Okay. Brian Thomas Jr. not leaving. They just re-signed Jacoby Myers after they traded for him. They like Parker Washington a lot. Yes, Travis Hunter's coming back from his injury. They like Brenton Strange. The only thing that they've got to figure out is their running back position, whether they bring back Travis Etienne or not. So, yes, a run game does impact the quarterback to a certain extent. But everything that you could ask for Trevor Lawrence in terms of, again, the guys that he's throwing to, his production in the rushing game, all that stuff isn't changing at all, right? So again, it has to be that we're expecting massive regression here. I don't think that's going to happen. The continuity cannot. There is too much continuity to be so sold on massive regression here for Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Now like I said, we'll move on to the other quarterback. Is Jaxson Dart. I mentioned him earlier. He's a guy who I think there is worry could regress. We saw 487 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns in only 14 healthy games. And 14 that Fantasy Pros puts out includes the 2 games where he plays under 5% of snaps in both of them. So really, in 12 games, he had 487 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. Do I think he's going to be mobile moving forward, score rushing touchdowns? Absolutely. But he's also in concussion protocol 5 times. It's, how much can you let him do it? How much is he actually going to do it? Bringing over John Harbaugh, Todd Monken this season, I think is going to help Jaxson Dart continue to produce. But if we see the rushing touchdowns come down, if we see rushing yards come down a little bit, we might not see the same, he had 23 plus fantasy points 6 times last season in 12 games. Do we see that again? I also see the upside of, I do think this is something he could keep doing. So that's why I'm okay having him around this tier. He just scares me a little bit more compared to Trevor Lawrence, who we just talked about.
I think what it comes down to is not necessarily like, I think it's natural to think that like, hey, after your rookie year, the rushing production comes down just a little bit. We need to have more than 3,000 yards passing. Yes, you're going to have Malik Neighbors come back at some point during the year after his knee injury as well. That's going to help things. Wan'Dale Robinson's a free agent. Do you bring him back? Right. So there's some things going, that need to be sorted out, figured out here for Jaxson Dart in the passing game. So ultimately, that's where my concern is, because I know what I'm likely going to get in the rushing department. I just have no idea what I'm going to get in the passing game. So if we're going to get 3,200 yards, 18 touchdowns, like, it's not going to really be much better than where he finished this year. So I think it is just because, again, he's going into his sophomore year. He now has John Harbaugh, Tom Monken. I feel like we're just a year out from that like top 10 finish from Jaxson Dart. Won't surprise me if it happens this year. I just think we're just a year too early.
He does kind of give, I think I said this when we talked about quarterbacks, he gives me a little bit of Kyler Murray vibes of, I do think he could run the ball 110 plus times in a season. I think he could get 700 plus yards, flirt with obviously he almost flirted with double-digit touchdowns this year, but I don't know if he's going to be a 4,000 yard passer ever. I don't know if he's going to see 29, 30 passing touchdowns ever. I think that's the biggest thing with him is I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like passing wise. And if the rushing ever takes a dip, Jaxson Dart as a fantasy asset begins to take a dip as well. Moving on, maybe not a guy that a lot of people saw coming on this list, but Kyle Monangai has really made a role for himself in this Bears offense. It feels like the early makings of a David Montgomery for Ben Johnson.
Oh, really?
I know
you don't say.
I know we don't like, people don't like when you use that, but that really does feel like the role he's going to carve out here. Ben Johnson has shown it every year he's been offensive coordinator. Hey, I like having this, a thumper in my offense. I like mixing it up. Monangai's been nothing but, good for the Bears this season. The fantasy stats, don't exactly make you go, ooh, barely top 30. But if this Bears team takes another step forward, if they look as good as they did, in the playoffs this season at the end of the year, Kyle Monangai could have a real role. He could be a guy who's truly flirting with double-digit touchdowns. Do you think he could take over that David Montgomery role? Are you not really interested in that? What's your thoughts moving forward on Monangai? Because he is already all the way up at running back 22. So is that a little too steep for you? I'll just let you give your thoughts on Monangai.
I think he's established himself as the David Montgomery guy already. There's not. I think Monangai is locked in to this offense as a key piece in their run game, because a lot of what Ben Johnson likes to do is based off of the run game. I think DeAndre Swift and Monangai are probably going to run it back next year. So I just think right, if we're all expecting Chicago to take a step forward next year, like Kyle Monangai as the David Montgomery guy and in that thumper role, like you said, we should be hitting like 8 or 9 touchdowns next year, at least. Right. And I think there was a lot for him to kind of earn some work to stay on the field. And he proved his worth when he got on the field. I think it's pretty straightforward here for Kyle Monangai. You are the next thumper in Ben Johnson's offense. You're good for a good amount of touchdowns. You're not going to get a whole lot of receiving work. You're going to sit around 180 to 200 carries, maybe push 210. But you're going to put up some yards because you have a really good offensive line in front of you. So that's the makings of just a really solid kind of running back 2 in fantasy football in general, right? Running back 22 right now is the value over on Keep Trade Cut. And I think that's pretty appropriate because I think a lot of people see Monangai already as that thumper David Montgomery type back. I don't really think Chicago tries to, galaxy brain their way into finding somebody else to do that when you've got Kyle Monangai on a 7th round contract deal, right? Like Kyle Monangai definitely is locked in, the biggest riser because not many people knew of him. They really thought he was going to be behind Roschon Johnson, like somebody on this show. Oh boy. Sorry, Lucas. I hope you're enjoying some warmer weather. Anyway, Kyle Monangai, you know exactly what you're going to get because this role in this Ben Johnson offense, we've seen it before. Now it's just a matter of like, actually, can it be as good as it was with David Montgomery? Because the talent from David Montgomery to Kyle Monangai is not the same. But again, when you've got a well-oiled machine in Chicago's offense, like that gives you an automatic floor that not a lot of other offenses can say they have the same.
Yeah, and I don't want this to come off as a one-to-one comparison with the 2024 Detroit Lions. They led the league in scoring last year, so you can probably take 80% of the touchdowns they scored, maybe even less, and put it to a projection of the Bears next year. But in 2024, Jahmyr Gibbs was the running back 1 overall at 250 carries. David Montgomery still in 14 games had 185 carries, 775 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Like that's what he was running back 16 in points per game. That's what Kyle Monangai could be for this offense. The season before he had 219 rush attempts in 14 games, 1,015 yards, and 13 touchdowns in Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie season. In Jahmyr Gibbs, the difference between him and DeAndre Swift is much bigger than the difference between Kyle Monangai and David Montgomery. So he is going to have a role. They are going to run the ball. I don't think they necessarily score 70 plus touchdowns like these Detroit teams, but it could be a lot of fun for them and it could be a lot of fun to watch. Well, that wraps it up for us and our 7 players skyrocketing up Dynasty rankings. Let us know what you thought. Let us know if you agree, disagree down in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're going to have more Dynasty content coming for you all season long. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get an NFL draft coming up too. So yeah. I am at Camelot FFF on the X, Tyler_Plath for Tyler. FFL is for the Fellas main page. The FFL is on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, Fantasy Football Fellas Shorts, if you want short form on YouTube as well. Well, that'll do us for today, and we will see you actually tomorrow. So, deuces.
Deuces.